Joanna Nicolas is here, safeguarding consultant and social worker. Joanna, very good morning to you.
Good morning, mate.
I mean, it's an awful story, this. I can't imagine really a worse one. I mean, we've seen others in the past, but this one in particular seems to have more kind of warning signs and more alarm bells ringing throughout the course of the 10 years that Sarah lived. I can't quite understand if you're in the protection of a child protection order and the father then gets sort of pulled up several times in the first year, that protection order doesn't in some way kick in.
Well, first of all, we haven't got all the details yet, and we won't get them until we have the statutory review that happens in these terrible, terrible circumstances. So we can't preempt that report, what that report is going to find. But I think there's been a lot of misreporting about and the language in terms of what orders were in place. From my understanding, there weren't any court orders in place.
So you're saying there wasn't a protection order?
There's no such thing as a protection order anyway, but there was no legal order in place, as my understanding goes. And an awful lot of information that came out in the court that hadn't been in the domain of children's social care previously. They didn't have the information that came out as part of the criminal proceedings.
Yes, and why would they not have had that then?
There are all sorts of reasons why. People often make an assumption that children's social care know everything. They only know what they are told. And what is a very common finding from reviews when children die in these terrible circumstances is agencies haven't done a good enough job of talking to each other. And the sharing of information is absolutely crucial. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if we find that I can't bear using the word case because this is a little girl, but in relation to Sara Sharif.
Right. Children's Commissioner Dame Rachel D'Souza says that this case shows that Britain's child protection system has a profound weakness, which we have failed time and time again to correct. Would you agree with that?
When a child dies in such horrific circumstances, it's very easy to leap to the conclusion that all the services are failing all of the time. And now is never the time to be talking about the fact that there is an awful lot of good work that goes on, because today, how could we possibly talk about that when we're hearing...
Yeah, that's not what she said, though. She says it's got a profound weakness in the system, which we have failed time and time again to correct. She's not saying that the system's failing everywhere. She's just saying that there is a weakness in the system which hasn't been corrected.
And she makes particular reference to home educating children, and that is something that anybody who works in child protection has real concerns about. And of course, there are lots of people who home educate their children for all sorts of good reasons. But we know that a disproportionate number of children who are pulled out of school are pulled out because the parents don't like the questions the school and other agencies are asking, and they want to hide their children away. And I absolutely agree with Dame Rachel about exactly that point. We need to put a framework in place to keep those children protected and keep them on the radar of all the relevant agencies.
Right. I mean, according to the reports I'm looking at today, even before Sarah was born in 2013, her father was well known to police and children's services, with officers being called 4 times to his home between 2010 and 2012. Surrey County Council's Children's Services were in contact from 2010 due to concerns of neglect and violence against one of Sarah's siblings, referred to by the court as Zed, and who was found alone in a shop aged just 3. So, I mean, I don't think that's disputable. This is all stuff that's come out in the court. So the Children's Services did know that there were question marks against this character.
Yes, lots of concerns. I'm not saying for a second that wasn't known. There was lots of information that was known about this individual. Right. And lots of very serious allegations of domestic abuse, and domestic abuse is a form of child abuse. So yes, huge concerns. And anything I'm saying, Mike, I'm not trying to defend children's social care, but there is a constant judgment that is made as to the level of risk. And you will know that there are many examples where parents have had children removed by the court. And again, to be clear, it's not social workers who remove children from their parents' care. It's the court that makes that decision. There are so many examples where families have felt their child was removed where they shouldn't have been.
But presumably children's services are involved in that process, though, no?
They're the lead agency in child protection. Right. Yes, they are.
So if a case ends up in court...
Children's social care that goes to the court...
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if children's social care goes to the court for a ruling, they are involved in that case.
Of course, they're the lead agency in child protection, but they're not the ones making the decision about whether a child should live with their parents
No,
or
of course,
not.
but presumably they get the opportunity to bring a case before the court should they think that's required.
That's their job.
And
That's exactly their job.
did that happen in this case?
As far as we know, at the moment, no. But we can't.
Or should it have happened?
Don't have all the information yet until the.
But surely we've got enough information.
We don't have all that information.
But Joanna, we've surely got enough information to suggest that anybody sensible looking at this case would have said, this is a problem, maybe we should look at taking the child away. And yet that doesn't seem to have happened.
But the thing is, Mike, it's very easy to be wise with hindsight. Of course, looking back, of course, that's the most obvious
I'm
thing.
not talking about hindsight. I'm talking about the fact that the social services were aware of the fact that this man was abusive to another child. They were aware of the fact that the police had been to his home several times. You know, these are facts. These are not speculative.
Yeah, but that's not a threshold for removing a child. We have a very high threshold in this country for removing children from their parents' care. The court says it's the most draconian thing they can do.
Yes,
it's a very high threshold.
But as you've just said, the threshold is not judged by the social services. The threshold is made the judgment by the court. But surely there's enough of a threshold for social services to ask the question, isn't there?
To certainly ask and assess, yes, absolutely. And they work alongside all the other agencies as well. Again, remember, they're not working in isolation. They're working with education, they're working with health, they're working with the police. And all these decisions are made together about the level of risk that all of those agencies think. But yes, Children's Social Care are the lead agency. They're the ones that go to the court.
Right.
But we do have a high threshold.
But in this case, they didn't do it. I mean, I'd like to see perhaps what other people, what other children were placed before the court in Surrey. I don't know what, you know, it seems to me there's an awful lot of information that they had that in most circumstances would suggest that there was a problem.
But Mike, if you looked at removing children where there have been serious allegations of domestic abuse and you found children alone, and that's your threshold for removing children, half the children in this country wouldn't be living with their parents. 2 women die every week as a result of domestic abuse in this country. It is a massive, massive problem. And there are many, many times there are children in those homes. We can't look at removing every single child. We have to assess risk and manage risk. And sometimes the worst thing will happen and a child will die in such terrible circumstances.
Yes, but death is normally as a result of something that's been going on in these cases for a long time. In this case, it went on for 10 years.
Correct.
So 10 years is a very long time for them to not think that at some point or other it should have been considerable and it should have been considered that the child should be removed.
I have no doubt that when the review comes out, they will find that there were lots of failings, that there were lots of times where there was an opportunity to intervene, where agencies didn't, to escalate concerns where agencies didn't. There's no doubt we're going to see that.
Yes, because I think it would be unusual for it not to be seen. But that's all I'm saying is that, you know, surely the idea now that the sort of the general principle that you should try and keep the child in the home as much as possible and as long as possible needs to be re-examined.
I think you'd find that most people wouldn't agree with that. I think most people would say that
most people don't agree with a lot of things I say, but it doesn't mean I'm not right. You know, that's not the point. The point is that, you know, it's difficult for me to understand why you seem to be defending these errors that have been made.
I'm not defending for a moment, Mike, not for a moment. But I do think it's right that we have a high threshold for removing children from their parents' care.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be higher than what happened.
But
it shouldn't be higher than what happened to Sarah. And I think it's pretty obvious that lots of things went wrong.
Her name is Zara.
But
just to be clear, it is very easy to be wise with hindsight. I'm not defending anybody, Mike. That's not what I'm here to do.
Well, it sounds like it.
But you have to understand that risk has to be assessed.
Yeah, but it wasn't assessed because if it had been assessed,
will get it wrong.
No, because if they had risk assessed it properly, this wouldn't happen. She'd still be alive. You know that.
As I say, it's very easy to be wise with hindsight.
Well, you know, you can't just keep saying that every time something like this happens, Joanna. But thanks anyway. Joanna Nicolas, safeguarding consultant, social worker. Sounds to me like she's defending it. I don't know. I'm not really very happy about that.